Hi everybody, this is Susie. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. We are going to make a super fun card today, and I am just showing you guys some of the die cuts and layers that I've cut for the card. And I will have a area in the description that has all the measurements for everything. And if I can find the link to this die, I will link it below. I purchased it a long time ago, so I'm not sure if I can find it, but if I can, it will be down there in the description, along with any other dies that I've used. If I can, I will put them in the description for you. Okie dokie. So I'm just showing you guys some of the tools that you're going to be using. A T-ruler is super important for this, just it makes things a lot easier. And they're not very expensive, only a couple dollars at like Walmart or something. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to take your card base, and you want to make sure that the fold of the card is at the top of your ruler there, and you're going to use the ruler width as your guide, and you're going to line it up with the bottom of your card base and draw a line, pencil line 1.5 inches up. And then what you're going to do is use that pencil line that you just made and line your ruler up with that, and then draw 1.5 inches up. I'm just trying to make sure everything's straight and everything. And then you want to do the same thing at the top of the card base. And I do a lot of flipping the ruler around because I'm trying to get it to where I'm on inches and not centimeters. But again, you're going to line it up with the top of your card base, draw a line 1.5 inches up, and then you're going to line your ruler up with that pencil mark that you just made, and draw another line 1.5 inches up. And I'm just trying to make sure I got everything straight. Alrighty. And again, I'm just making sure I got all of my lines all straight and everything. Oh, geez. Just like in my last video, here I go being OCD again. It's gotta be just right. But realistically, you really do want this exact, so do take your time to make sure, because with this particular card, it does make a difference. So now what I'm doing is I have the ruler at the top of the card, and I am lining up the ruler with the ends of my pencil marks at the 1.5 inch end of the pencil mark right there. And you're going to want to score between your two pencil marks. And with your cardstock being super thick, you want to push really, really hard. Mine was so thick that I had to do all the measurements again on the back of the card, but no biggie. So now what I've done is I have turned the card over, and I'm redoing my measurements on the back side. So then now I've done that, and now I'm going to just line my ruler up on those two measurements, and I'm going to score between the two of them. I'm going to do this on both sides. Okie dokie. So now what you're going to want to do is draw two lines between like 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. in between your two other lines, just right in the center, and you'll be able to see that better here in just a second. And then you're also going to want to score in between both of those two little lines and push hard enough so that you make an indentation on the other side, so that when you go to draw your lines are in the same place, since I'm not measuring the distance between the two. But now you can see here that I drew a little line, two little lines up in the center of both of my spots here, and then scored at the top of it also. And then you're just gonna cut up to the score line on both sides and on your two little spots in the center of these spots. And now it shows here that you kind of pop those areas out, and then you want to fold it down and crease it really well. And again, I absolutely cannot stress enough to use really, really heavy weight paper. Maybe even poster board paper if you don't have any super thick cardstock. And you're going to want to get a small dowel rod that fits your little slits that you make. I ended up having to get a little bit thicker one, and what it is it's a chopstick that I happen to have in my drawer that I cut down for this, because the thickness on that was pretty close. Now you're going to want to take those two little slits that you made, and you're going to push it back and then fold it. And what that does is it makes a little channel for your dowel rod to go through. Okay, so now I'm just showing you both of those folded back and how the dowel rod fits in there. This isn't the one that I use for this card, but I'm just showing you here. I ended up needing to use a bigger one because my hole was a little bigger. Okay, so now these are the two pieces that go on the inside of the card, and I am getting them lined up where I want them to sit on the inside page, making sure that all my edges are even as best I can anyways. Anyhow, and now I'm just tracing around those holes on the paper. That makes it a lot easier. I don't have to do any measuring or anything like that, which is awesome. Anyhow, you're gonna want to cut it out just on the outside of your lines, or it will end up being too tight and won't fit. And I even had to trim it out just a little bit more than what I'm showing here. But you can always just, see how it fits, and if it's still a little too snug, take a little bit off, take a little bit off at a time instead of getting way too much. And now I'm going to line my papers up together and trace that hole on the other piece and cut it out. I ended up having to I made a template or a card before I made this card. I didn't finish it. I just made the mechanics of it, the inside part here, to make sure that everything worked right and I was doing it properly. And really, I do suggest that you use some cardstock that doesn't really matter or whatever, and make a little mini one to make sure that you're doing it correctly. But like I said earlier, you really need super heavyweight cardstock for this to work, because those little arms that we cut that fold in there, they need to be really rigid in order for it to work. And now what I'm doing is, this is the piece that's going to layer on top of the inside pieces that I just did. And so I'm laying it on my card base and tracing around those holes so that I can cut it out. And I started to cut it and then thought, oh, I should really get the ruler out and make sure that I'm doing this straight, because that would really stink to have to ruin it and re-die cut that piece out anyway. And I'm just now starting to feel better. Oh my gosh. I had the flu for about 2 weeks. I still have a bit of a cough and a froggy voice, but man, do I feel better than I did. My granddaughter had the sniffles and gave it to Kenny, and then Kenny gave it to me, and then I gave it to Ariel. Anyways, it's making its rounds around the house. No fun. I need to make a couple of paper beads that go on that little dowel rod, so I'm just showing you here. And you set your paper at an angle and then cut it, and then don't use that piece, but then use your next piece. Here I'm showing some parts that you can get at the hardware store, and they are amazing paper bead rollers. And I got this set on eBay from China, and I think I paid 10 bucks for the whole set of them. I'm just measuring to see what size my dowel rod is, because you want the inside of your paper bead to be the same diameter of your dowel rod that you're using, so that it fits on there. And what I did was drilled out a hole in the end of one of my other tools and sank it down in there on that, because I didn't have a little dowel rod that size. So, oh well, it works. And now I'm just rolling the bead up. Sorry, I'm kind of out of frame here a bit. Sorry about my froggy voice, guys, too. It's all cracking. And don't look at my nails. They're horrible. I need to get them done desperately. So anyway, so I made the paper bead and I slid it on the end of the dowel rod there. And I'm just making a pencil mark where I need the beads to go to. And then I'm going to put some glue on the inside of that bead and slide it down on that dowel rod. And you're going to want to make 2 of these beads, one for each end. But you're only going to put a bead on one end of it for right now. You won't do the other bead until you're all done with the inside part. Now you're gonna want to punch 2 holes in your cardstock. One just above your lower arm there, and I'm using a small punch. It's not a regular size punch, it's a little one. You need to be able to pass your baker's twine through there, but doesn't need to be any bigger than that. And now we're going to punch another hole here, and you need to have this hole lower than your first hole that you just made. It has to be lower on the page than your first hole, or your inside mechanism will not work. So I'm just trying to determine where I want to place that hole right now. And you can see here I'm quite a bit lower on the page. Alright. And there you can see the 2 holes there now. There you go. Alright. Now you're going to want to put your dowel rod in your slots that you made. Actually, first what I needed to do is punch a hole in the same place that the other ones were on my layers. But had I been thinking when I did this originally, I should have glued all of my layers that are going on the inside down and then put my holes in, and I wouldn't have had to do this step, but I didn't think of it. And I'm showing here that I'm using a glue stick because I wanted to be able to slide that in and have it not stick right away, but take it from me, don't use a glue stick because it ended up lifting in places and I had to glue it down and was a major pain in the butt. So probably do wet glue so you can slide it in instead of the glue stick. I hadn't used this particular brand before and I had high hopes for it. Well, that's all they were, was hopes, because it did not work out very well. And it also made my page a little bumpy. So alright. Now I'm just putting some glue on my other piece and I'm going to glue it down. I'm using art glitter glue. I have it in a little squeeze tube just to make it more convenient. Okay, so now you're going to take a couple of feet of baker's twine and you're going to run it through the top hole closest to the inside of the card there, and you're going to want to glue that and tape it down. I used the glue on there because I didn't want it to end up coming apart or anything, or the string pulling through or anything like that. So I just ran that line of glue there, and then I'm going to tape it down real good. And I'm going to use several pieces of tape because I don't want that going anywhere. Because after putting all of the work in and time and making this, the last thing I wanted is for my daughter, who is getting this, I'm giving her this card for her birthday. Her birthday's next month, in May, coming up very soon. Anyways, so now you're going to want to slide your dowel rod into your little slots there. And you're going to wrap your baker's twine around your dowel rod, and just pay attention. Slow the video down if you need to, and you're going to want to make sure that you don't cross this cross any of these over each other. And I wrapped mine 5 times. But like I said, make a little demo of this mechanism before getting into your card that you're going to make, just to make sure that you know how to, or that you're doing it correctly, because the first time I did it, it didn't work very well, and I had to mess around with it quite a bit to figure it out. And also the problem I was having to start with was the cardstock that I used was not real heavy weight. It was a nice weight, but not real super heavy, and it did not work. You really need those little arms to be very rigid, and make sure that you don't let your string cross over itself. That's really important. Just take your time sliding it down like I did. And you want to slide it all the way down like that, because if you leave it up higher, one, it won't work, and two, you won't have any place to put anything. Alright. Now you're going to want to play with it for a minute and get your tension correct. Make sure that when you put your thread through to the other side and tape it down, that your card is open. Otherwise you won't have any movement in your little twist thingy there. So just let your card stay open. Yeah, play with it a minute, make sure it's working. And then you're going to turn your card over and glue it and tape this side down as well. I was trying to cut this with my left hand, and trying to use scissors with my left hand, as you see, did not work very well. And this is speeded up, so it took me a couple minutes to get that string to cut. But I didn't want to let go of the thread with the other hand, making sure everything stayed still. Anyways, so just tape that down real good. And then here you can see I'm playing with the card and it's working. And now this is when you're going to want to put your other paper bead on there. And you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of room between the bead and the little hands, or your little folded out places there. You don't want to glue them down too close to it, otherwise it'll hang up and your mechanism won't work properly. Now I'm just doing some double-sided tape and glue, because I'm going to glue the one side of the card and tape the other. And you're going to put this layer on both sides of your card, and what that does is that hides that mechanism, which is totally awesome. And as you see, I ended up getting some glue on my one side there, so I decided to put another layer on there to hide it, because I couldn't get it to come off of there without totally messing up the cardstock. So I just made it a little extra thick. I love the end of my scissors for getting that tape off. Makes it so much easier. And the reason why I'm putting glue on there also is so that I have a couple of seconds to kind of get it where I need it to be. and it doesn't stick right away, or if it touches something, it's not gonna stick in the wrong place. Anyways, just gives me a little bit more maneuverability. Alright, and now I'm just gonna put the cardstock on the other side, and I decided to put the tape and the glue on the piece here on my panel there instead of just on the panel. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to be able to get some double-sided tape between the arms, and the last thing I wanted to do was measure everything out to put tape on. So, and it actually made it a lot easier to get it lined up because my cardstock wasn't sticking to everything until I put it down. I'm just using the inside of the card to push it down flat. Alright. And now I am starting with the layers on the front of the card. And I'm just going to stick, sorry about my arm getting in the way. I wish I could get my hands on some more of that 2-inch double-sided tape. I found it on eBay like forever ago, and I paid like $3 for it. And anyhow, it was a smoking deal. I wish I'd have bought more of it when I got it, but I only got the one, so that's alright. So I save it for the big areas to do, or the bigger projects. And I'm going to have in the description all the measurements for everything. That way I didn't need to tell you measurements that you're not going to remember while you're watching the video anyway. So, well, rather I wouldn't remember it. I always have to go back and look anyway, so I figured just put it down there for you. This paper that I'm using is by Hot Off the Press, and the name of it is Take Flight. I got it in a scrapbooking lot, and it came with the stamp set and the matching papers. I got it on HSN a long time ago, and I stuck it in a drawer and forgot about it, and I was looking through stuff the other day to make this card, and I came across that scrapbooking kit, so I figured I'd use it. I do love it. I think it's super pretty. My youngest daughter's birthday was last week, and I made her a card using this paper also. And I just think it's so pretty. Plus, then I also already had it out, so. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue down this layer. And I will also leave in the description the brand and name and everything of the cardstock that I'm using, because it was absolutely perfect for this. It's super heavy duty, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I will put it in the description. The same die that I used to do the butterfly background there came with the inside layers to it, and I cut it out in foam and in the paper, and I just backed the paper on this piece of brown foam, and it's just fun foam, but I love that it works out great, especially when you're using paper and not cardstock, because it can't stand very well on its own, especially not if you want to do any dimension. And here I have the brown fun foam on the brown cardstock and cut it out at the same time. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 coming up.